Okay, it's the YouTube's one. Let's see if it wants to die again for like the 20th time today. Maybe what I should do is just keep this running while I go get my food, because I haven't had any food today at all. So I'm kinda hungry. It's typically at about the 5-minute mark that it starts complaining that it's too big. Okay, so far it seems pretty good for 4.5 minutes. Okay. Okay, what I'll do is I will go get some food real quick. And I'll leave this running with a message that is not "see you next time," but a message that reads, getting foods, testing internets. Let's do that. I'll try to be quick, it shouldn't take too long. Okay, it's been up for about 12 minutes. I don't think it's dieted. Looks pretty good to me. So we will see. Oh hey, at Flixlife, when did you get in here? Oh hey, at Kira, when did you get in here? Okay, well, I guess while I have my foods, I'm gonna go ahead and do the big feats.
Never seen anything, never really heard anything. Well, I take that back. He has heard Sasquatch, but he always passed it off as kind of a bird in the woods, or the Woodnox being another hunter putting up a tree stand, that sort of thing. And it wasn't until December of 2020 when Mike actually had a run in with two of these creatures while out hunting. A very fascinating account. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. A listener, one of my members, sent me this piece of audio, and I'm going to be chatting with him along with a few other guests on Sunday for the members. But I thought I'd play the audio for you. He recorded it on an iPad, and I went through and amplified the noise that he captured. And what I found strange.
I don't know what's with the recent episodes where he's just so obsessed with playing his big feet sounds. I think it's been like the past 3 times that I've listened to some big feet stories. He keeps playing the sound. And it's so spooky. It's gonna give me nightmares. I don't even know. What's his obsession with it?
About it is it's very similar to the Ohio Howl that was recorded back in 1994. Here is the original recording from 1994 in Ohio, and they captured this weird audio while out in the woods. Let's take a listen. What's really cool is the eyewitness that sent this to me.
It's really cool, guys. Did you notice that? It's really cool. Super duper cooly wooly.
This recording is from 2012 in Maine. And Bigfoot aside, I mean, even if you went to a wildlife biologist, you'd be like, hey, identify this animal for me. What do you think it is? They're very similar. Let's take a listen. This is 2012 in Maine. And I got the full story up on the blog. I'll be talking with the eyewitness on Sunday. His kids even got this weird thing flying in the sky and over the trees, and I posted that up on the blog if you want to go look at it. So we'll be chatting with him on Sunday. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Mike to the show. Mike, thanks for coming on.
How's it going, Wes?
I'm doing well, Mike. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us what happened to you. I want to ask you, prior to this encounter and being a hunter your whole life, what was kind of your take on the whole Sasquatch subject?
I was kind of agnostic about it. I mean, I figured maybe it was possible, but I thought all that stuff was out west, with the Gimlin stuff and, Canada, maybe Alaska, but never down here in the deep south ever. Nothing like that.
It's funny to hear you say that, Mike. I hear that a lot from people in the South, to where they always think it. If it's real, it's a West Coast problem.
Also, I think the thingy might be getting worse. No, you stay over there. You stay over there. No, you stay there. My left pinky is losing. I'm losing my ability to carry stuff with. I mean, I guess I'm not technically supposed to carry stuff with my left pinky, but I tried to put the plate, the bowl, into the microwave, and I couldn't lift it with my pinky. And now it's starting to hurt. I might have to decapitate my left hand entirely. Because it seems as if it's moving somehow. It's either going closer toward the pinky or closer toward like a vein or something. I don't know. It wasn't like that earlier when we were moving stuff around, but now it is. If I make a fist with my left hand, I can kind of feel it differently as well. Spooky. Also, I lowered the bitrate to 4500. It was 5000, so maybe just lowering it to 4500 makes it okay for both streams. Maybe that's what was the issue the whole entire time. I might have to keep going lower though. We will see.
And that couldn't be further from the truth. Because I swim in this soup every day, I think way more goes on down in the South where you're at, as opposed to the West Coast.
I think she's acting like she's a little horny, but I don't think she is. I think she just knows that we give her attention when she's like that. So that's why she's doing it now. That's what I assume.
Where I'm at.
Yeah, and ever since my encounter, I've really done my research in the last 6 months, and I found your show and stuff like that, and I can't believe how much encounters are in Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia. I mean, I never knew that.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a long history of it down there where you're at. And if you go to historical records, if you look up Wild Man or Devil Monkey or Booger, that sort of thing, you'll find a lot of accounts. If you look up Sasquatch, Bigfoot, you're probably not going to find much in the historical records in the South, anyways. If you would, Mike, would you just kind of start from the beginning? I know this was about a year ago, a little bit less, December 2020. If you would you just kind of start from the very beginning? Kind of tell us what you were doing and walk us into what happened.
Okay, I'm from Biloxi, Mississippi, which is a little casino town on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And down here in the deep South, when people deer hunt, they use dogs. A lot of people, they use foxhound. They call it the walker. Well, I'm not. I'm an avid still hunter, and to get away from the dog hunting, you have to go into like a wildlife management area for still hunting and stuff like that. Well, on December 14th, I went to a spot that I'd hunted for years and years. It was off of a power line, and this wildlife management area is it's taken care of by the state. There's plenty of ryegrass fields and stuff like that. Well, that's your hunter's first go to. And I work on weekends, so I always hunt during the week, and I always put cameras out, and I've never had anything like that show up on a camera or anything like that. It was just very weird. I was up the tree one day. I always get pretty high so I can see pretty good. And it's starting to give me just a minute, Wes. I'm starting to get a little bit of butterflies. It's starting to come back to me a little bit. So anyway.
What the heck? A grown man has butterflies? Fucking gay, dude. Imagine having butterflies. Cringe. That's what girly thing. Well, does he wear lipstick too?
It's, it was probably 3:45ish, 4ish. Sun. It was getting dark then, probably right at around dark where you can't see, probably around 5:30. Um,
Uh-oh, I see the internet's dipping here. They don't like me criticizing him. I called him cringe for having butterflies and assuming he wears lipstick too. And then the internet dipped to like 100 to 200 upload. What the heck? YouTube error. No, no, no. You stay over there. No, dude, stay over there. No. Okay, fine. Don't touch anything up here, though. No, no, no. This is. I gave you food. I literally just gave you food. What? You're just gonna sit there now? Okay, you stay there, and I'll stay here, and I'll eat my food, okay? YouTube is not receiving enough video, enough data to maintain smooth streaming. Oh, okay, there it goes. I don't know why that stays on there for so long. It's kind of annoying. It's like, from my perspective, I can see that it's a pretty stable upload, but then YouTube's warning stays there for like 5 whole minutes. 5 whole minutes.
at about 3:45, I heard something coming in the woods behind me, and
He heard something coming in the woods behind him. Oh, okay, buddy. He does wear lipstick then, and he does have butterflies. No wonder he doesn't. Wonder he's scared of telling this story.
it sounded like had a lot of weight to it, a lot of mass to it. At first I'm thinking, okay, it's probably a buck coming in, fixing across the power line. I wasn't on a food plot or anything like that. I always hunted behind where I was hunting on a power line behind a food plot because the deer, they get so used to the hunters that they will not come out on the food plots until after dark and eat. It makes them nocturnal down here. But the way I've always hunted deer is I would always catch them 400 or 500 yards behind the plot on a power line or something, because what them deer do is that they'll get 100 yards from the ryegrass plot and sit there and wait for the sun to go down. And when there's no more sunlight, they feel safe and they'll go out there and eat. You know, so it was coming in behind me and it got on the side of me and it stopped. And I heard heavy breathing, very heavy breathing, like almost labored breathing. It was pretty weird. So I'm sitting there. I couldn't see anything because down here in Mississippi, it's nothing but gallberry bushes and briars and all that crap. You can't see anything. Every year they burn the woods here. That way, they burn all the underbrush, just so you can see a little bit. So, anyways, this thing is just hunkered down, probably 50 yards from me, and it's just sitting there. And it gets to be 20, 25 minutes later. I can hear it in there. I can hear it in there fumbling around, but it's not really moving. Then it starts to move north, like away from me a little bit. And I'm like, what is this thing doing? The whole time I'm thinking deer, I don't have, is he gonna wait till it's dark and he's gonna hear me come down the tree? And so I'm just sitting there, man. And I'm like, I'm getting really impatient. I'm starting to get pretty pissed off, because the sun, you can't beat the sun. The sun's going down. Then it got silent for about another 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden, out of my right peripheral, I see something black go out onto the power lines, but it's further away. We're talking 100, 125 yards, 130 yards. So I put this thing in my scope, and it looks exactly like a black bear standing on all fours. I know we have black bears. We don't have a lot of black bears. They're federally protected. If you shoot a black bear and game warden gets you, you're going to do federal time. I'm sitting there and it's just looking ahead, side to side. I picked my scope up and looked at it again, and I noticed the right side of its face didn't have any hair. And then this thing sits on its butt like a human being, with its arms laid out on the side, feet on the ground. I'm like, well, what the hell is this? And I'm still, it's not registering in my mind. This is some kind of ape, or this is Sasquatch, or whatever. I'm like, I'm pinching myself. Am I asleep? What is this? It is sitting there, and sitting there. I don't know if this thing just smelled me and came in. I don't know if it was just doing its own thing and it never knew I was there the whole time, but it's sitting there. I'm looking at it, and I focused in on its back really, really good. I got a really good look at it. I had a 3x9 by 56 Vortex scope, about a $600 scope, pretty good one for my price range, anyways. And I got to looking, and this thing, it didn't have, like, when you grab a dog by its hide, or if you look at a bear on TV, it didn't have that pelt hive. It was hair, human hair, but long. Imagine a rock star that's got long brown hair. That's what his hair on his back consisted of. And you could see through it. And you could see his skin. His skin was a little bit ashy, but it was dark, dark brown. And it I hear on a lot of these encounters.
This almost sounds like somebody for the first time looking at 3D renders of something that somebody modeled, describing in perfect detail. It looked like it had human hair. It looked like it had a human skin. It had the proper colors, had the proper texture, the proper bumps, the proper pores. You could see every little tiny detail.
How sometimes when these things come in that you get like dread, and you start thinking about bad things and stuff like that. It didn't really do that to me. It just piqued my curiosity. But the sun was going down, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't. It looked too real to think it was somebody in a suit. I knew it wasn't that. I knew I was dealing with something paranormal, at least. So I finally got the kahunas up, and I stood up on my.
Bro sees a giant dude, a giant mountain man walking through the woods. He says, "I know for a fact it was something paranormal." He seems convinced.
I stand and I yelled at it, "Hey!" And when I did that, I don't know. These things move like nothing I've ever seen in my life. I'm shaking. I'm shaking real bad right now because I'm going back to the way this thing moved.
Yeah, it's very strange, almost kind of unnatural. You know what I mean?
It's Wes. It's like this thing popped up, but it's like it was sitting down. It didn't use its legs. I don't know if it just pushed up real quick, so fast I couldn't see, but this thing popped up in the air onto its feet and was looking, doing 360s. He was looking for the source of the sound, and he couldn't see me, and he started mumbling. He was he was doing that gibberish stuff that I mean, just that Tasmanian, that yo 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 yo. That's what he was doing, but he was talking too.
What the heck? It's my league teammate. When they're angry at me because I didn't go in on them on a stupid choice. Why didn't you back me up?
He was like trying to make sentences, and I couldn't make it out. He couldn't see me because I was hidden pretty good. I was up 30 foot in a tree, but when I hunt, I hunt to where I'm not skylined by animals and stuff where they can't see me. He couldn't make out the sound, and he was just going crazy, man. And then he let out a scream. Oh man, um, sounded like a lady screaming plus a bull, maybe a bull and a woman screaming. There,
So he heard a bull and a woman mating. That's what he heard. He saw a giant and then he heard a woman and a bull mating. Was he telling us a story about his fetishes?
very extremely deafening loud. Uh, he was very big. He had a huge head
Oh, okay. He even knows that he's very big. Okay, thanks for the very detailed explanation. He's very big. Thanks, buddy.
on him, cone-shaped head, no hair on his face. He had a little, very little facial hair, but he had a profound brow ridge. He was unbelievably big, big boy. Uh,
Unbelievably big. Okay. Well, I guess he got to see her pretty close up then. That's good to know. Thanks for including us in your pastime out there in the woods.
when he was walking, I mean, he was huge. It was like from his waist up, was pretty big, but his legs and his arms.
Okay, so his perspective is that he can see him from the waist up. What is he doing looking at him from the waist up? What kind of position is he in where he's looking at him from the waist up and he can tell that he's very big? He's huge. He's massive. Tell me more.
Arms were super long, his hands were going past his knees, and he was looking for the source of the sound. But when he stood up, now when he was standing up, it wasn't like us, man. It was like his legs didn't lock out all the way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they have a very strange way of their
3
stance
times 2 to the power of 4.
Oh, hey, Emotes, when did you get in here? Thanks for the 48 months. What's this equation for? This complicated calculus level mathematics. What's this for?
of a way of standing. I think its knee placement is why it looks so weird, but I get exactly what you mean.
Yeah, his knees didn't lock out all the way. It was like they were still bent a little bit. And
Okay, it's 48. I see. Fuck, I don't have my keyboard. Fuck. Oh, actually, I shouldn't type it in there. I see.
he was looking for the source of the sound, man. And he had his back to me. He had his back to me again, and I looked at him again in my scope, man, and I can see his fingernails. He had dirt under his fingernails. Like,
Is it a big feats game? Is there gonna be detailed feats in your game? Cause these episodes that I'm listening to have pretty detailed description of some pretty big feats. If you wanna use that as reference.
maybe when he was sitting down, he might have been digging in the dirt. I don't know. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the sun, man, and this guy's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. I'm thinking, okay, is he just gonna keep going? But he wanted to know what the source of that sound was. So I just kind of said in a low voice, hey, I'm right here. When he turned around, he looked dead at me. His eyes were solid black, and his eyes got super big, and his mouth opened, and he started smiling. I don't know if that's some kind of defense thing they do or whatever, but he was smiling at me. And he started talking in that gibberish again, and he walked straight to me, 30 yards away.
Maybe the reason he was smiling is because, like, oh, there you are. You're pretty good at this hide and seek stuff. I'm supposed to be the good one. Basically, I made a very simple first level in a couple days with basic mechanics, inventory, dialogue, interaction, NPC, enemy, minigame, player movement, And now for like 4 days, I've been rewriting all the systems so they're cleaner and more scalable. And after that, I'll actually build the game. What's the genre of the game? Is it a hide and seek scheme where you find big feats and spooky witches?
He wouldn't come any.
Are there gonna be characters who would be pretty cool if somebody like Kiro made art about them and then posted them in a kind of secret server? I don't know if I saw anything about the genre in your thingy though. Oh, okay. So you're trying to do like a Undertale meets WarioWare in terms of combat. No, 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 not in the game. But are you gonna have characters who could have art made of them? Because I would imagine so. That'd be a good way to do that.
Closer the whole time. I'm looking at him, and I'm starting to think, okay,
What if I just kill the YouTube stream? That's so weird. It's literally so bizarre. Okay, OBS says it's reconnected. Let's see. Twitch. Looks like Twitch is okay. Is YouTube okay? Okay, so the YouTube stream is still up, thankfully. Okay, so both streams are up. I might have to reduce the bitrate even further. Maybe what I'll have to do even is just do 720 as opposed to 1080. The internet's dying again. Oh, there it goes. Okay, internet's dead. It's so weird because like I'm pretty sure it's only OBS that's dying. I don't think anything else dies when that happens. I'm pretty sure I'm still able to use Discord perfectly fine. And I think I can also load websites. So I think it's only OBS that's doing that. It's so weird. Why the fuck is only OBS dying? It literally has to do with the upload. Because I don't know what else could be the reason for that. Can I lower the output to 720p? Okay, so I guess I have two options, but one of them is currently grayed out. The one that's grayed out is I can first scale the video to 720p, which I cannot do right now, but I can scale the output on the stream. What would that be? Would that affect the upload or just my CPU or GPU rendering? Okay, let me see. This might kill the stream for like a quick second or like might force me to restart it, but we will see. What if I enable the rescale output and then do 720? Oh, okay, never mind. It doesn't let me. It's there, but it's grayed out. I can't press the check mark box. So I'm either gonna have to do this one or the video one, but this one's grayed out too. So I guess they're both grayed out. Oh, wait a second. Can I change? I think I'm gonna have to stop the stream for it to not be grayed out. Can I change the bitrate here while I'm currently? Oh, okay, I can change. Okay, what if I just reduce that to 4,000 then? What I'm either gonna have to do then is I'm either gonna have to wake up early before people get home from work and stream at those hours so that we're not all competing for upload and download speed, or I can just reduce my bitrate and my resolution. I guess I'll have to try both. Okay, let's see if 4,000 kilobits per second is adequate enough.
So I have to undo my. I'm thinking about this the whole time. I have to undo my harness. I have to jack down from this tree.
Oh, and no, I have never played any WarioWare games, but I have heard about them, and I have downloaded the GameCube one, I think. And I do want to try those at some point. But I have definitely seen like people playing it kind of briefly. But personally have no experience ever playing. Yeah, I know that there's one on the GBA, the GameCube, and the DS, and I would assume also on the Wii U, probably. The the most WarioWare game I've played is the level in Smash Bros. Brawl. That's the most WarioWare that I've played in my entire life, my entire Xbox Live.
Tree, and I got to face this animal to get out of here. The last thing that needs to happen is night needs to fall because I've got a tiny little flashlight. I didn't bring my big flashlight because I knew I was on a power line and I knew I can get out. And he's sitting there. This encounter went on. He was 30 yards away from me for about a solid 25 minutes. He was looking at me, but he wouldn't look at me for long. It was like he would look away, but he wouldn't move. And every time I looked at him in his face, he would look at me crazy and he would smile and he would start grunting. So I tried not to look at him too much. I didn't want to look at him. He wasn't no fashion model to say the least.
Yeah.
He had big square teeth like us, or kind of looked like horse teeth, to be honest with you, but they were perfectly white. And there was one time that he stuck his tongue out. I don't know what he was doing with that, but he had a big long pink.
I guess if his teeth are perfectly white, then that means he doesn't drink coffee.
Tongue. And the insides of his mouth, like the insides of his cheeks, were black. But I didn't know what to think, man. I got this creature in front of me. It's daylight still. I can see him, but he's not really being aggressive. It's like it's like maybe he was curious, and I'm scared. I'm out of my mind the whole time, but I'm trying not to panic because
This is the exact same logic that they use when they're saying, "I'm not being aggressive. You're just scared. You just feel threatened, but I'm not actually threatening you." And then they say things like, "You didn't have to shoot him."
I don't want this thing to read all that. So I'm sitting there and I picked up my gun and I looked at him again real close. And he backed up when I grabbed that gun again because I had it on the side of me. I picked it up and he backed up and he turned his head and looked at me at the, he didn't turn his whole body. He just turned his head to the side and looked at me sideways. I think that's why I think these things know what guns are. It's like I picked it up to look at him real close. I had to take my scope and I had to power it down because he was closer. And man, I'm telling you, he
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt your encounter, but did the creature start backing up at this point?
he didn't. No, he never backed up. He just kind of just turned his head to the side and was looking at me with one eye, like, "Don't you do it." That's what I was getting off of him. Don't you do it. So I started looking at him real close, and just the facial expressions this thing was making with the side of its jaw. I mean, he had a profound jawline that was just out of this world. Hair on top of his head was black. He was solid black hair, but I mean, he had a lot of hair on top of his head, is what I'm trying to say. Uh, he, I'm starting to think, what, why, why aren't we ever told about these things? I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's ever seen something like this. I'm not, and unless this is God trying to tell me something, or if this is some kind of demon or what. So he he starts pacing. This thing starts walking back and forth. It's like he's trying to decide if he wants to do something about me or if he wants to go. He keeps walking back and forth, grunting, moaning. It's like he's getting impatient. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to get out of here? I'm going home. I'm not going to die. I got a high powered rifle in my hand. And if I have to put it in his face and take the back of his cap off, I will. But I'd rather not. I just want this thing to go and I want to get out of here. I'm half a mile down the power lines. I'm 500 yards down the power lines. So I finally had enough and I said, "What do you want?" Very loud. When I did that, this thing freaked out. This thing started screaming again, and he screamed at me real close, Wes. And when he screamed, his eyes closed, and it's like his mouth got super big, and it looked like his face caved in on itself and then came back to normal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it sounds like the creature was really pissed.
Yes, and then he kept blowing at me. He was hitting me with the. It was like, you ain't going nowhere. And when he did them hoods, you can feel it hitting you in your face and in your chest. It was like there was power behind it, man. It's like I can't explain it. I mean, he was far enough away from me then to where there's no way if he blew in the air, I can physically, feel the wind. It had some kind of power behind it. It was hitting me. It was like when you're in a parade and somebody's beating that big drum and you could feel that drum in your chest. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And he just took off. He ran about 50 yards. He hit that power line and he went back to all fours, went across the power line and just started tearing stuff up. He was pushing trees down. He was grabbing gallberry bushes and throwing them in the middle of the power lines. Then he would cross back over the power line behind me and he was wrecking shit up over there. He finally he never quit the whole time. He was just going ape shit. And he finally got far enough away from me, I would say 100 yards back there wrecking stuff. I come down out of that tree. I jacked down like a machine gun. I left stand and everything. I had a $400 Summit Titan that I left on a tree that I did go back and get, by the way. I'll explain that in a little bit. I started running down the power lines, and I'm running, and we're talking about a 45-year-old chubby white boy scared out of his life
Yeah.
going down the power lines. I get about halfway down it, you know, the sun, it's starting to, it's not dark yet. It's not dark yet. It's twilight. It's twilight. Sun's done went over the trees, but you know, the sun's gone, but you still got that little bit of light left. That's what I had. I'm going down the power lines, and I'm talking about I get down there real good and fast, and I'm winded. So I stop for a second because I can still hear him back there tearing stuff up, but he's way, way, way away from me now. I'm out of breath and I'm walking fast, trying to catch my breath. So I finally get my wits about me again. So I just start jogging a little bit because I'm whooped. I'm out of shape. All of a sudden, I hear something on the side of me, about 30 yards in the woods, doing everything I do. Running, I can hear it running beside me. I stop, it stops. Start walking real fast, it starts walking real fast. But I notice I get to where I can see the top of my truck way, way, way off. I can just see the top of it. I'm on kind of like a little hill, I guess. I get down there, and this thing is, I could hear. This is why I think it's two of them, because this thing on the side of me is paralleling me, but I can still hear old boy way back there tearing shit up too, and screaming and grunting and making and doing his deal. Well, I get, like I said, I get like maybe 250 yards from my truck, halfway point. And I got something else on the side of me. It's parallel me, but it's moving in. It's like any minute I'm ready for it to pop out. I finally had enough, man. I shot one in the air, and we're talking about a 7mm Magnum, pretty big gun. For down here, it's a real big gun, but they use that for elk and moose up in Montana. I cracked the shot in the air, and all of a sudden everything stopped. It quit. This thing quit paralleling me. Old boy in the back shut up. It got real quiet. I start running again. I get to my truck. I'm whooped, but I still got that feeling in the back of my head. You get in your truck. You don't know what's behind you. Get in your truck. Don't be stupid. So I stick my key, and as soon as I stick my key in my door and I lock my truck, I think it was the one that I seen from way back. He let off again, and it was loud, very loud. But he was probably half a mile, 3/4 of a mile off. But even from that range, he sounded like he was close. I got in my truck, man, and Leaf River is nothing but dirt roads. It's a wildlife management area. I'm slinging gravel. I'm slinging gravel. I'm out of breath talking to you, man, about this. I'm slinging
spooked.
gravel. I'm fishtailing, almost wrecking my truck. I finally get on the main road out of there. I finally made it to Highway 26, and I did 100 mile an hour from there, and then got on Highway 15 that takes you all the way to the coast. I don't know how I didn't get stopped by a cop, but I did 100 all the way home. I get home. I didn't even get my gun out of my truck. I stripped my clothes and got in the shower, turned it on full blast cold, and just sat there and laid in the
What
shower
the
for
heck?
about an hour.
He's just gonna stay there for the entire time, not even gonna... He's not as spooked that the big feats might enter and try to take him in the shower. Isn't that like a whole bunch of people's fears where... I know it's one of mine. I do not want to get caught in the shower. Being unarmed. How does he know he didn't chase him all the way? Like, that's so weird. If I was chased by a big feet, I would not... My first instinct would not be to go into the shower. It would be to light up the whole entire house, the inside and the outside. And then keep an eye out. Be extremely observant and be ready to fire at the smallest thing, including the tiny bunnies and the tiny grasshoppers. That's what I would do. I would not want to lock myself into the shower, into a tiny room where I could be cornered and mutilated in 4 seconds. That's my logic if I get chased by a big feet.
Trying to make sense of what happened to me.
You know what's fascinating, Mike? I know you had to step outside because you didn't want your kids to hear the encounter of what happened to you. Man, there's a little bit of background noise. It's not bad though. What's fascinating is the audience doesn't know you and I are on video. We can see each other. And I can tell you from doing this for so long, most of the time when people recount their encounters over the phone or on the show, they get up and they pace back and forth. And it's kind of a psychology thing that I've noticed with a lot of people, and it's fear when you're telling someone what happened to you.
It's taking me straight. It's taking me straight back. It's just what keeps coming back to me was when he was looking at me when he was super close. How 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 close to us he is.
Yeah, let me ask you, Mike, because you got a really good look at this thing in the middle of the day. For the audience, would you kind of describe what you saw that day?
Uh, Definitely humanoid. Uh, I think this is definitely a people. Every bit of 8 foot tall, easy. Maybe even a little bit bigger. I'm gonna go with 8 foot. Very huge, very defined definition of muscles. Definitely like in his quads, in his biceps, and his back, dude, was huge. He was 4.5 foot across on his back. Maybe even 5 foot. Huge, huge. Facial wise, I've heard, like I said, I've been watching your show a lot now. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to your show. I've been catching it on YouTube, but I actually want to. I'm getting it.
Yeah, you guys should subscribe to on YouTube and on Twitch and or everywhere else. Easy peasy.
Where I'm getting at is, a lot of these people that I hear.
Subscribe for more watching womanly chores while listening to spooky stories and other philosophical ideas and news articles and current events.
On your show and other shows, when they have these encounters, it changes their life forever, which it does. It does change your life forever. That's never gonna quit burning in your mind. But you have some people, they'll never go in the woods again. It didn't affect me that way. It affected me in the terms of I want to know more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, Mike. Let me ask you, because you got a really, really good look at this thing through your scope. I'm curious, did it look more like a man? Did it look more like an animal? I'm curious on your impression.
More in between animalistic and maybe caveman or Neanderthal face. Big, wide, profound nose, but hooded though, like a human, but just real wide across. The lips, he had a huge mouth, but he didn't have the big lips. He had thin lips. I mean, I'm talking about huge mouth, like he can stick a watermelon in his mouth. He was a big boy. He was a big boy.
Yeah, that gets reported by a lot of eyewitnesses. That I've talked to many people who say I could put two softballs in this thing's mouth and there's still room for it to eat, which is huge. I mean, a huge mouth. A lot of people talk about that. I'm fascinated by the expression of the creature. The expressions it was doing, would you say those were human like?
Yes, like when he was looking at me from the side, when I drew on him for about the third or fourth time when he was close, I wasn't drawing on. I wasn't wearing my glasses that day. Anytime that I hunt and I have a scope, the scope is my glasses. I'm nearsighted. I can see stuff like 10 feet away, but anything further off, it's just a blur. So I had to use my scope to look at him real good. Well, he was looking at me when he turned it. Every time I would point the gun at him, he would turn his head and he would look at me, and he would look at me with that one eye, but the facial expression would be like, "Don't you do it? Don't you do it?" It's like this thing it knew about guns and what they do. Bang, bad bang stick he's got. I don't know. I think these things are highly intelligent. I think these things are a people. Now, I know you're probably going to get to the point to where you're going to ask me what do I think they are. I think that it's hard to say, Wes. I mean, the 12 foot giant that they killed out there in Afghanistan with the red hair and the red beard. What was that? It's hard to say what they are. I don't know. You can go back to biblical times. You can go back to Enoch. I mean, is it DNA from fallen angels? We don't know. I can't think of the name. Starts with the N.
Nephilim.
Nephilim. Is it an offspring of that? All I can say is it's a very big creature and it's covered in hair. It has a language. I didn't gather that on my experience, but from other experience, they seem to be like tricksters. I don't know what their intentions are. I don't know if these things come from another world. I don't know if they're, extra dimensional, uh, or are they just a flesh and blood creature that is just, that's their domain and they know how to hide. You're getting a lot of of experiences, and it's starting to come out in the open a little bit more. Just like UFOs are starting to come out. The government's starting to give us the lowdown on that. Everything's starting to come together now. So I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. Let me ask you, Mike. I'm very curious about the way it sat down. Did it sit down? You ever been at a baseball game? You see a catcher kind of getting that weird stance, kind of like the catcher stance. Did it sit down like that, or did it sit down like a person would?
It come out on all fours, and it's like it scooted its butt in between its chest and sat down. It sat down, and it took its legs. Its knees were straight up, and its hands were on its side. But at one point, it was like digging around and stuff, like in front of it. Like, I don't know, maybe if it was playing like a kid playing with ants. I don't know if anything like this will ever happen again. I mean, if it, um, it's just one of them things, man. It took me months to do this, man. I was gonna send you an email like 3 months ago about this, but it just took a lot of courage and it took a lot of guts. Um, it's not when it was fresh when it first happened. I'm not. I didn't go to work for a week. I didn't go to work for a week. I couldn't. I couldn't even talk to anybody. It affected me pretty bad. But as time went on and I started listening to your show and that actually helped me a lot because I knew I wasn't alone.
Yeah, there's one side to encounters I rarely address, and I do a really poor job of addressing this. But there's real PTSD after an encounter, and a lot of what you're talking about, not going to work, not sleeping, stuff you and I talked about off the air, very very common. Even having the feeling of like, am I losing it? Am I going crazy? Did I, just have a mental breakdown? I didn't really see that. Everyone kind of goes through that, but one question I want to ask you, it's
Am I wrong? No, it's the kids who are wrong.
the perfect time, I guess, to kind of address this. What was it about seeing this thing that it affected you in that way? Was it just seeing something that shouldn't exist?
Different feelings. When I was looking at it the whole time, I was thinking, there's got to be more than one of these things, and these things are these, everything that I was taught was bullcrap about these things. As a kid, Bigfoot's not real, the booger's not real. That's what they use down here. They call it the booger. Don't go out in the woods, or the boogeyman or the booger's going to get you. But that was just, we all thought that was folklore. Well, it's true. They're there. I guess it was just the whole reality of it. I mean, looking at this thing, looking at it, the way it was looking at me, the expressions on its face, the language, and just realizing we have stuff like that out there, man. It just the unknown.
Can I ask you about
He's becoming like Fox Mulder. The truth is out there, and I want to believe.
the language? I find the language fascinating because there's a lot of situations to where I think these things talk slower. And so it throws a lot of people off. They think it's just some language they've never heard before or a language they don't know in the woods. But there's another vocal, and I even played this for Claire in episode 515. And I asked her, I said, is this kind of what you heard?
Oh my god.
And I'm curious, Mike, in your situation,
What the heck? That's so spooky. If I fucking heard that, I'd fucking shoot myself in the head. Holy Christ. Imagine you're out there in the darkness all by yourself with like maybe one or two guns. And then, hang on, I gotta go back to I gotta go back to set this up.
5:15, and I asked her, I said, "Is this kind of what you heard?"
Okay, here we go. Imagine you're out there in the woods. It's late at night or early in the morning. You're hunting. You're trying to hunt, rather. And then the forest goes completely silent. You hear absolutely nothing for a couple minutes. And then, in the distance, but fairly close by, you hear this in the woods.
And I'm curious, Mike,
And then your body starts to shake.
in your situation, did it kind of sound like that? Is that kind of what you heard?
Yeah, it was like the Tasmanian devil's like it was more like he was talking to himself. It wasn't like he was like screaming out to somebody else. It was like he was, I don't know if he was trying to talk to me or just talk to himself, but it was kind of like let's see if I can do it right. It was kind of like just yeah, but not exactly like that. He had a lot of clicks and whistles in with it
So it's kind of like, but not exactly, is what he's saying.
that I can't do. They definitely have a language, and I definitely do think they communicate for sure.
Yeah, I'm on board with them having a language. I mean, I can definitely go with that theory, especially after all the eyewitnesses I've talked to. But you know, every animal communicates out there. I could play two squirrels right now, chattering back and forth, and most people will go, "Yeah, they're communicating back and forth." But what's weird with Sasquatch is when they talk, especially at a slower rate, it sounds like some weird ancient language.
Yeah, and there's another thing I have to put out there that I left out. Like I said, I've been listening to a lot of your shows here lately, and you have some Mississippi boys on there. I've listened to Coonbo and Carrie Arnold. And Carrie Arnold said something that was very, very important, and it made me reflect. These things, all these whoops and everything, I've heard these things all my life and just thought it was other stuff. Like when they whoop, I always thought that was either coyotes or just some kind of weird bird. These things have been around me the whole time, and I just never knew what it was. They never shown themselves. Never knew what it was. I've heard beating on trees, just thinking it might be another hunter out there doing, fixing a stand up, or maybe I'm close to a house that somebody's doing construction on.
Yeah, it's so strange. I've heard so many hunters say that, like the whoop. They're like, I thought it was just some weird bird.
Okay. This guy is a hunter, and he says that he's heard the bonking on the trees, and he assumes one possibility could be that somebody's doing some construction out there. Come on, bruh. Bruh. They're not going to be doing some construction and only do a couple of taps, a couple of little hammerings. They're going to be doing constantly bunk, 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 bunk. Come on, bruh.
Or the tree knocking. I've heard I've heard many people kind of talking the way you're talking, Mike, and it makes me wonder if deep down they just don't want to know, because no bird really whoops. You know what I mean?
Right. And about about a month and a half later, hunting season was after this encounter. Hunting season was finally over, and I took my brother with me to go retrieve my stand. But I never told him my encounter. I just told him that I left it there. Just left it, and I was gonna go get it at the end of the year. Well, we walked back in there, man, and nothing out of the norm, man. Even some of the bushes that he pulled up and threw on the power line, it was gone.
Yeah, not even your tree stand was touched.
Not touched at all. And I've heard some encounters where their tree stands will be like twisted up and stuff. Nothing wrong with it at all.
And I know you're just speculating, but I'm kind of curious, Mike. What do you think was actually going on? I mean, obviously, from what I hear, it sounds like the creature didn't know you were there. It was kind of screwing off, and then bam, you were there. But what do you think the creature was doing? And I know you're just speculating. I'm curious on your opinion.
I've thought about that a lot, Wes, and here's what I come up with. It could be true, it could be false. Power lines are a good ambush point because deer, hogs, and stuff like that, they use power lines for corridors. And they're a very good ambush point. I think he might have been doing the same thing I was and staying off in the bushes and waiting for something to come out. Same thing I was. And when maybe he got a whiff of me, or he might have heard me when I talked to him finally. But when I did, I'll tell you what,
I tell you what.
he lit it up, man. He wasn't playing any games. He was not playing no games at all. He was, oh man. I I think for the rest of my life, I'm gonna think about that every day, probably. Now I might not be frightened like I was by it. Like I said, I'm going hunting next year, for sure. But like when I go bow hunting and stuff like that, I'm gonna be packing a 45 with me.
Yeah, I'm really glad I didn't take away the your love of hunting. As far as weapons go, get a shotgun, take the plug out, fill it full of slugs, and just don't let a game warden catch you doing that.
Yeah, or some triple aught buck. Yeah, anything. It just does. It had me scared for about a month, but I'm always gonna. If anything, I'm definitely gonna be more aware of my surroundings now.
Yeah, it's eye opening. It'll definitely make you be more aware of your surroundings after encountering one of these things. One of the questions I want to ask you, Mike, going back to that mumbling you heard.
Oh my
Man,
goodness.
that's
Why the
creepy.
fuck? Why does he play it unannounced, unintroduced? He just fucking plays it out of the blue, trying to fucking scare the shit out of me. Holy Christ. Fuck this guy. And fuck his podcast. I'm never gonna listen again. Okay, let's keep listening.
Creepy every time I listen to it. I wanted to ask you, I did a show, gosh, I can't remember how long ago it was. I think the name of the show was It Moved Like a Crackhead. And the reason why I titled the show that is that's what the eyewitness was reporting. But one thing that he said, if I remember right, it was a female creature. He's property, and he said that she would do these weird hand gestures and just seem to mumble to herself, almost like you would see someone who's on drugs. And my question to you is, do you think it was mumbling to itself, or do you think it was actually talking to you?
I don't know because when it would look at me, it wouldn't talk. It was like when it was looking the other way or looking down, it was like talking. But this thing was talking, man. I mean, I understand that rabbits and squirrels make noises to it. This thing was talking. This thing was talking just like me and you are, but it just was. It was in a whole different language. It was just that rough Greek sounding blah 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 blah. The Tasmanian devil. It was super weird, man. Super. It was definitely Twilight Zone, without a doubt.
Yeah, and then the creepy part, Mike, of getting paced out. I don't really understand that behavior because you're leaving at that point. There's really no need to harass you further, I guess, from my perception. But they do it all the time, and when you stop, they stop. I've heard it a million times from my witnesses, and I would imagine that's almost a little bit more unnerving than actually seeing the creature, because you don't know its intention and you can't really see it.
Exactly. It's like he or her, I believe it was a second one, stayed. I mean, they had their geometry just right, man. Just enough in the woods to where you can kind of see bushes moving a little bit, but you can't see them. And it was pacing me out the whole time, and it was getting closer and closer and closer. And I didn't know if this thing was going to jump on me or what. So I threw a shot in the air. When I did that, everything ceased. And another thing I want to mention, Wes, another thing I want to mention, a lot of these encounters, when one's around, everything gets quiet. Nothing was out of the normal. I mean, I can't really remember if there was birds chirping and stuff, but there's when you hear about these encounters, you hear about a profound quietness. Everything gets quiet. It wasn't so much like that. And another thing I wanted to mention, when he was standing in front of me, you hear about these things rocking back and forth, like with their head and stuff. He wasn't doing that either. He was standing still, he was moving his head, like to look down and away from me, but he wasn't like rocking back and forth.
Yeah, I hear you. It's fascinating, Mike. A lot of eyewitnesses, they'll say it looked very human-like, or looked more like a Neanderthal, and then some eyewitnesses you talk to, and they're like, it looked very much like a great ape, but with some human features. And then other eyewitnesses will say, no, it was very much like a chimp, but with some human like features. It's a fascinating topic, especially, with the language that you heard. And a little while back, I talked about four different types, and it was just a crazy theory I had based on eyewitnesses. And the Bigfoot world took that and it's canon. And now they
It's
have charts
canon.
and maps over the four types. And, I don't know if there's four types. There could be 20 types, there could be one type. No one really knows, but it is fascinating to talk to eyewitnesses around the country and kind of get their perception, their interpretation of what they saw. And as far as the different types, I've